Okay, hi. So I've decided to do another one of these little videos where I walk you through my process for editing a photo, mainly because I think it's fun and I like being able to showcase some of the work that I do. So today we're going to do this photo that I actually took yesterday at the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, and this is the after. So here's what the before looks like. Okay, so you can kind of see what we got going on here. I've made it kind of moody and in a way like ethereal. I've kind of brought out the reds to make them more like blood-like. I've also fixed up my skin and I've tried to make my eyes pop a bit more. So I'm going to walk you through step by step how I did this. So starting over here, the very first thing I did, because this is actually a series of photos, the first thing I did on every single one of them was go in and fix my skin. Because as you can see, I'm having a little bit of a rosacea flare up. So I went into the heal tool and I just made sure that my brush was big enough to cover the entire thing. And I covered up some of those spots. And then some of these little ones here I also took care of. I didn't go too crazy because we are going to end up smoothing out the skin a little bit. But I did just enough to kind of take care of the big spots. I mean, that already looks a lot better. And then you can see still all of my natural skin and texture. It just isn't so blaringly obvious. And like most of my videos, I am going to start in light. We're going to work our way down to color. I'm going to skip right over color grading. We're going to go into effects and detail. We're going to do masking. And then finally, we'll go in and do that final color grading. So, 0.64. Already you can see what a difference that is in making it moody. And the thing is too, when I edit photos, like even though we're going through it by section, I don't necessarily do it by section. I'll kind of hop back and forth. So if I remember correctly, I actually think I did my masking first, but that's okay. We'll get into that. -18, -4, and +15. So just with those edits alone, you can already see how, yes, we've made it darker, but we're also kind of leveling out the playing field by taking away some of that contrast. Okay, now going into color. Let's go back to this one. Oh, it's so cool. I love like the purpley and the orange that I added into it. I just think it's like so interesting. Okay. +4, +8, +14. And then I also altered the greens, purples, and pinks. Okay. We'll get into that one next. I think I ended up editing the tints a little bit more towards the pink because I did adjust the green and the color mixer, so to kind of just like balance my skin back out. Okay. Oh, you know what's funny is I totally went through, I like duplicated this photo and I went through and I took off any of the edits, but I'm looking at it now and I see, come on, right there, that I didn't adjust the purple or the pinks yet. So I guess this wasn't a true blank image. Hold on. Should I take it off now? Whatever. You'll see. You'll see what I did to it. Okay. -40, +13, -41. Okay, so this is actually a part where I'm going to be explaining a little bit more what I did. In many of my photos, it's just my personal style. I really enjoy dragging the greens closer to the yellow part of the spectrum just because that's what feels cool and nostalgic to me. So we'll bring this down. You can see how, oops, I went too far. You can see already how that makes a difference. And then I brought up the saturation on it. And I brought down the luminance to kind of make them darker and edgier feeling, moodier. Come on. Cool. And then, unfortunately, it looks like I already had the purples and the pinks taken care of. But I will turn off all the color mixing for just a second so you can kind of get a feel for how it changed. Pay attention to the leaves and the flowers. There you go. You can see a little bit of it reflected in my shirt too. Cool. Okay, moving on. I actually do think that now would be a good time to get into the masking. Yeah, we'll come back to effects. Okay, so mask. I have a lot of masks going on here. We're gonna start with my skin. I brought up the exposure on it a little bit and the contrast back into it. I saturated it just a little bit, and then I brought down the texture, the clarity, and the sharpness just to help smooth out some of my rosacea that was going on in my skin and to smooth out some of those like dark circles that I was experiencing. So we will get into that first. So plus 16, plus 6, and then saturation plus 6. Okay, so I'm gonna go in. It's going to detect me as a person, and I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to click facial skin and body skin. That was the mask that I did. Create. Okay, so plus 0.16. Beautiful. Plus 0.6 for the contrast, or just plus 6 rather. And then plus 6 for saturation. So far, this is the difference. It's very subtle. Okay. Every single time we go back to the other photo, we're going to have to re-click on the mask that we want. Okay, and then for texture, clarity, and sharpness, -18, -22, -26. So I'm actually gonna, maybe that's zoomed in too much. I'm gonna zoom in to about there so that you can really see what bringing down these different like affects does. -18. I mean, that already helps like just smooth out what's going on there. -22. Oops, not 23, 22. It's subtle, but it gets the job done. And then -26. I'm going to move on to mask 2, which are my lips. I ended up wanting the lipstick color that I was wearing to kind of fit the vibe of what I had going on in the background a bit more. And like I had put it on unevenly and my lips were dry, so we adjusted that. Okay, so I masked my lips. Let's see what we got going on here. I brought down the exposure. I brought down the contrast, -38. I used the fine adjustment to -5.8, adjust the hue, and then I brought down the saturation. Okay, we're gonna start with that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my other photo now. I'm gonna click create mask. I'm gonna click on myself. I'm gonna click lips. And we're gonna create that mask. -0.40. Beautiful. -38. We're gonna do that color adjustment to -5.8. And we're going to bring the saturation down to -11. Okay, cool. We're starting to get into that color range a little bit, but you can still see like just how jagged and like uneven my lips are from the horrible way I put on my lipstick that morning. But it's kind of aesthetic. I don't know. I feel like with how this photo is going to turn out kind of moody, the messed up lipstick is cool. We're going to go back over here. Click on those lips again. Now I brought down the texture, the clarity, and the sharpness on this as well to kind of smooth out some of those rough edges. -29. I'm so glad I thought to write these down because I would be going back and forth so much. -17. -19. Okay, so moving on, we're now going to go to mask 3. Mask 3 was the background. I brought down the exposure a little bit and I brought that contrast back up. This is interesting. Sometimes when I go through these, I'm like, oh, I must have forgot what I did before because I brought down the contrast of the whole image, but then I brought up the contrast to my skin and I brought up the contrast to the background. And I just feel like there are different ways I could have done that. Like I could have just, I don't know. I must have just forgotten while I was mid doing it. So we got background mask, exposure is -0.20, contrast is +46, saturation is +13. We'll start there. Background, -0.2, there we go, +46. Saturation +13. Cool. Yeah, we're really starting to cook here now. This is cool. Going back to our background mask. Okay, I also, once again, brought down the texture, clarity, and sharpness. -21, -20, -32, -21, -20, and -32. And now that we're done with that, let's take a look at how that background mask affects it. Honestly, like, I think the background looks good without the mask. And I feel like in a different world, like, that could totally be its own vibe too. In this instance, I just wanted it to be kind of darker feeling, like, I don't know, like a romance novel, like, or YA, like, vampire type of novel. Like, that's what this image is giving me in terms of vibes. Mask 4, I put on my eyes and I brought up the exposure, the contrast, and the saturation on that. Oh, actually, and texture, clarity, and sharpness, just to like make my eyes pop, be a little bit more noticeable, and be interesting. Plus 0.36. We got plus 16. Okay, already you can see a little bit of a difference. It just like brightened up my eyes, took them out of that shadow a bit more, brought some of the natural color of it back out. Okay, and then plus 9. Very subtle. And then down to texture, clarity, and sharpness. I just wanted them to pop a little bit more. I wanted like the edges to be a little bit more defined. 8, 7, and 9. Cool. So if we just pay attention to this eye, there we go. Off and on and off and on. It's just subtle, but I feel like it helps them stand out a bit more. Last but not least, in terms of masking, I got one on my hair. I just brought the temperature a little bit cooler. -6 for temp. Person. Hair. We're gonna drag that temp to -6. Into effects now. Dehaze, -5. I feel like that has a tendency to give it a little bit of this vintage or film quality because it kind of actually adds haze into the center of your photo. And then my vignette, I got -19. Y'all know I love a good vignette. And I think that's everything there. Get that vignette on. Just really brings that focus in. Boom. Now for the fun stuff. Well, it's all fun, but you know. Color grading. Okay, midtones I have like orangey yellow. Shadows I have reddish, and highlights I have, I would say orangey yellow also, but definitely more on the yellow side. Shadows 350 and 9. Midtones 30 and 16. And then highlights 47 and 16. Okay, this is going to be one of those scenarios again where instead of, well, you know what? Let me just show you actually what it would be like to kind of play around with the color grading. So I'll have us land on what I chose, but let's say I'm feeling like, oh, maybe I want some like purples to the shadows. That's what that would look like. And obviously, the further to the outside of the color wheel that you go, the deeper the color is. But doing something like this can be really helpful for just figuring out what you want. Because let's say, okay, I'm liking that vibe, we'll set it there. And now let's just pull it down a little bit so it's not so drastic, right? And then all of a sudden, you're landing someplace that feels pretty good. I'm actually I mean, that looks cool. That looks good too, but I'm going to show you what I actually ended up doing. 350 and 9. Oh, that's right, because we're on shadows. So I did do some like reds in the shadows. I thought it was kind of romantic and cool. Midtones. Same thing. Let's see what happens when we just like pull around the color wheel. Now we can kind of see where our midtones are lying. And we ended up somewhere around here and somewhere like around, oops, here-ish is kind of where we ended up. I'll type in the real numbers. They were 30 and 16. Cool. And highlights. Let's take a look at what our highlights look like. Okay, I kind of love the pink. That's really cool, but we're gonna keep going. And I kind of like the blue too, how it's sad, you know? Like this, okay, let's say we were to put this here. To me, this person, which is me, but you know, this character that I'm playing in this photo, the blue gives me like lost in the woods. Or maybe not even in the woods, because that would maybe be a different color, but this just gives like lost, sad, desperate, something going on behind the eyes that's interesting, but you can't really tell what they're feeling. But the blue makes you feel like it's set in some sort of drama where she just like walked out of a bad situation and her hair's all tousled, and now it's like, where do you go? What do you do? But now let's actually type in what we did do, which was 47 and 16. And that gives it more of that soft, romantic kind of moody romance YA novel feel rather than that sad, you know, thriller drama where it's like, oh my God, what'd she just go through, you know? The photo's done. I mean, I'm pretty sure we got everything taken care of here. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you would have done differently, and have a good rest of your day.